and the town council. And first off, I just want to say thank you so much for coming tonight. This is really in response to the town hall that we had a year ago. The town of Bonanza really heard that policing was a problem. We understand, we live in this community, and so the commissioners came out and a lot of other law enforcement professionals to really hear the community talk about the problems we have. And since then, the commissioners have been really working on a solution. We've been looking at solutions from a town perspective as well, so I just want to thank everybody for coming. Commissioner Group is going to take over here in just a second and explain what the commissioners have come up with. I do ask if you can please save your questions for the end. Please ask us as many questions as possible. That's why we wanted to present this to the community so you can see what it looks like and just let us know your opinions. And again, thank you all for coming. We really, really appreciate it. I'll turn it over.
Thank you, Councilwoman. So everybody hears me okay? So everyone is aware we're being audio and video recorded. It's going to end up on YouTube later for people who could not make it. And then forgive me because I'm going to bounce around all over the place. I was tired after work, so I drank a rock star. So we're going to be moving around quite a bit. So as you mentioned, last year we were out and we had a conversation with folks. And a lot of frustrated folks. Worried about policing in eastern Klamath County and the lack of presence that they were feeling and people not feeling safe in their homes. And we said, okay, we hear you loud and clear. In fact, I pulled it for those that were here. I said, if we're able to come up with something that's reasonable, who here is willing to pay a little bit in order to get what you're looking for? And almost unanimously, people raise their hands. I'm like, okay, I'll go out and look for something that I can try to figure out what makes sense and what doesn't. Try to make it as affordable for folks as possible. Try to make sure there's as much local control as possible. And try to make sure that the dollars raised in this area stay in this area and you get what you pay for. Because really that's what it's all about. So we came up with some different stuff. We batted around all kinds of things. But the first thing that we really needed to figure out was what do the boundaries look like? What areas are we talking about? And can't just be the town of Bonanza or maybe the area of Sprague River, the area of White. It really needs to be something that encompasses where you guys are seeing the problems and where you're seeing the problems coming from. And make sure that we're taking care of you. So I'll walk over, for folks who haven't had a chance to take a look, anyone who doesn't know, this is what Klamath County looks like. And this is what you're talking about. This is the East Klamath County Policing District. Can people see that? Turn that. And it's here. It incorporates the communities of Derry, Bonanza, Sprague River, Beatty, Bly, and everything on the east side, all the way to the border. Now, we didn't want to just start drawing one of those gerrymandering circles, right? We wanted to make sure that we didn't leave places uncovered. So it does go all the way to the Lake County border. Within this, then we started looking at, okay, what are the options for raising enough money for this to make sense? Now, something to keep in mind, we want to make sure that there's coverage out here, and definitely way more than you see today, but it's not like you're going to see an urban level of coverage, right? You're not going to see a quote-unquote urban level police force. This is still rural policing. It's not necessarily 24/7 coverage with cops all over the place. That's not affordable, nor is it reasonable, nor is it really prudent for the type of area that we're covering. But what it does do is it hires a good number of people to provide a pretty high level of coverage. So then I said, okay, went to the assessor and GIS, and I'll just put this together. We say, okay, what is the total taxable value of that area? And it's not an enormous amount. So when you go try to raise a certain level of funding, the number of dollars per thousand skyrockets and gets, quite frankly, in my opinion, unaffordable. Unaffordable. Something like that would never pass anywhere in Klamath County. It shouldn't actually pass here. Because the people who are doing things the right way end up paying for all the cost of the coverage to take care of the people who are doing things the wrong way on that area. So then we looked at, what about if we did something by tax law? So if you did it by value to raise the same number of dollars, which is is just over 1.1 million, and we'll go over why that number makes sense in just a minute. $3.25 a thousand. Absolutely outrageous. But if you did it by tax law, it's only $72 a year, right? $6 a month. And it raises the same amount of money. Now, if you have multiple tax lots, you pay multiple times. But we also found out something very interesting when we started looking at who owns those tax lots. There's 15,912 tax lots in that area. And almost 11,000 of them belong to people that do not live in Cloud County. We send their tax bills out of Cloud County. These are the landowners that don't pay attention to anything, that have squatters on their land, that have people running rake shop all over this community. These are the folks that you told us you were sick and tired of. You were sick and tired of having to deal with. But if you did it by the thousand, those people's value of their lots are like $6, right? It might be taxed at $100. Well, $3.25 a thousand means you're paying $32.5 cents. And that doesn't seem fair when somebody who has a $100,000 house is paying $325. That doesn't seem right. So this is what we came up with, which makes a whole lot more sense. Now, to come up with that dollar amount, what we figured is we need to know what people cost. Because let's face it, the highest expense of providing policing is people, right? It's a service base. So I asked our staff at the county, I said, go down and look at the sheriff's department and code enforcement and find me the most expensive sergeant you could possibly find. Make sure that they've been with the county for a very long time. They have every bit of education. They have every certification. They have everything. And how much does it cost to employ that person? And then find me 4 more deputies. Again, they've been there forever. They have every perk. We're paying these folks the most that you can possibly pay. And find me a code enforcement officer. So those 6 people, a sergeant, 4 deputies, and a code enforcement officer. And I think the code enforcement officer is very important. And I think that you would find, if you talk to law enforcement professionals, that code enforcement officers are vital to their work. And they do a lot of the work that they don't have the time to do. And they find a lot of the trouble spots that you and I know about and talk about and complain about. So these code enforcement people are important. And if you had those 6 people, what is the total cost of hiring them for a year? And that's $800,000. So 1.1 gets you enough to pay for those 6 people. It gives you enough money to equip them, put vests on them, give them weapons, give them vehicles, and give them a place to work. And hopefully a couple of dollars left over for those things that happen. And I can tell you right now, folks, I've been at this for a little bit now, almost 8 years. Things always happen, right? And here's the other thing that's important to know, and this is the downside of doing it by tax. You can't have an estimator in there, which means your property taxes. Whose property taxes are the same as they were last year? None of us, right? They all go up every year. This doesn't. So the cost of employing those people is going to slightly go up every year, but the taxes are going to stay the same. At some point, there's going to be a nexus where those come together, and it's not going to be affordable. And at that time, I'm guessing, based on looking at it, it's about 10 years' time. You have to say, is this working for us? Yes. Well, we might have to make it $74 for tax. Right? And that'll be up to the voters. What's important to note here is this isn't up to the Board of County Commissioners. It's not up to the Town Council. And it's up to you guys. Do you want this or not? When we were here last, you said, yes, we want this. Well, this is what it looks like. So we can get it on the ballot, and we can give you guys the opportunity to say yes or no, and it'll be up to you whether or not you want to do it. I believe this addresses the concerns and puts some type of a structure and mechanism in place to deliver the level of policing that you're asking for. Because I'm going to be honest with you. This level of policing will never be able to be provided by the county. at the current tax levels. It just won't. In fact, the cost of operating the county is going up at about 10 times the rate as our revenues are. We're probably looking at cuts in the near future, not expansion of services. We just don't have enough. Our taxes have stayed flat. Our expenses have gone up. All of it. And I know your taxes haven't gone flat, but we've lost a lot of tax revenue. When land goes dry, it's not assessed at the same value, and it's gone dry a lot. When dams get removed, they're no longer taxed. The pipeline, and this impacts people out here a lot in your small districts. The Department of Revenue, in their infinite wisdom, says it's not worth what it once was. Also load. And that's critical for people. Lake County got hammered, just everybody's getting hammered on that. But if you look at the tax revenues for the general fund for Bonanza County, they're essentially the same as they were 5 years ago. But our expenses go up. So anyway, that's not about this. We start talking about the budget for Bonanza County, I'll get on soapbox. But what's important is kind of what we went through and to be able to answer your questions, get your feedback, and make sure this makes sense to you. Now, I've done this presentation about 5 times now, and every time I do it gets faster and faster, which means I'm probably leaving some stuff out. So, did I hit all of them? You all got it a couple of times? Oh.
How it relates to funding the county sheriff office versus this, that's all.
Okay, so one of the questions, if you didn't hear this, is, okay, so what is this, how does this relate to the funding that the sheriff's office currently gets? No correlation whatsoever. This is independent funding for policing in this district. The folks that work here will have to show up to work here. And that's when their shift will start. The dollars raised in this district cannot be used legally anywhere else in the county, with the exception of mutual aid agreements. In other words, if there is some type of emergent shooting or something like that that happens out in this area, your folks could go ahead and respond and give aid to the other folks that are responding. Likewise, you continue to receive the same. Nor does it relieve anybody's obligation for services they currently provide. Does that make sense? Okay? Everybody's still responsible for providing as fair as possible service. But you guys, they never make it out of the early program because that's where all the faults are. And that's why you don't see it. There's 3 deputies on duty at any given time. Cover 6,000 square miles. Happy to take some questions. Yes, sir.
So, of these 17,000 tax lots, how many of them actually pay their taxes on time? What's going to happen when that money don't show up?
So 15,912 tax lots, and that's a great question for those that didn't hear it. What happens when folks don't pay their taxes on time? They don't pay their taxes. Well, I tell you, we're really good at making sure people pay them, and if not, we will take it. We foreclose on land people that don't pay their taxes. It takes years. Then we sell it, and all of those dollars that would have been due to the district will be given to the district when the property sells. Right? It's not fair for people not to pay their taxes. They will be foreclosed on. So when those properties sell, you'll get this bill. Also a good reason for there to be a margin between what it costs to operate and what you actually receive a year. Those uncollectibles could be years behind, but you'll get them. And once it's in operation for a period of years, if you go and you talk to other districts, I know, sir, you were on the library board for a while, you get these little checks once a year. It's for people's back taxes after we've gone ahead and sold those lots.
But what safeguard do you have, like in the first couple of years? You know, you're cutting it pretty thin there at $76 for each one of those tax lots. What kind of safeguard is there that at the end of the first year you got the money to pay these guys?
So what kind of safeguard is there going to be to make sure that you have the money available to pay these guys if you have a little bit? Because it is 800,000, 1 million, plus all of the equipment. It's not a huge margin. Please keep in mind, we put together what it costs the most expensive people to hire. It's not actually material. Okay? right? We just wanted to make sure that no matter what they cost, we could afford them. But you're going to start out at the bottom of the tax, or on the pay scale, not the top of the pay scale.
Yeah.
Right, as you hire these new employees, or so maybe sometimes in the middle. So there's room in there. Yeah, based on the history of our collectibles, there's room.
Can you help us?
Yes, sir.
I got a question of the law enforcement side of this. So you're talking about these patrolmen would be able to make arrests, correct?
Yes, they'll be law enforcement. They'll be policemen.
And would they, if they arrested somebody, would they go to the county jail? Because the only jail we got is down by the post office.
You can talk about that.
It isn't realistic.
So the question was, will they have the ability and the authority to arrest people? The answer to that question is yes. These are regular law enforcement professionals, right? And the second question, if they arrest somebody, where do they go to jail? They go to Klamath County Jail. If you get arrested by Merrill, Malin, KFPD, or the state police, you go to the Klamath County Jail.
Okay. And the second part of that question is there a chance that we're going to have revenue coming in from like fines, speeding tickets? Is there any potential revenue to
Pay its own way?
pay it, not to pay its own way, but
Right,
is there,
I would say I don't know the answer to that question. So the question was, will the department be able to give fines, and will they be able to retain those fines? I'm going to need to look at some court jurisdictions for you. The court jurisdictions, for instance, if you're cited into a municipal court of a city, those fines go there. If you're cited into justice court, they go to the county currently, so we can probably work out some type of an IGA there. We need to look at what that would look like.
well, we should certainly get some share of that, even if it's only
Yeah.
20%.
So it just depends on where they get cited to, and that would be up to the district and the people living in the district. The people living there. I have one up here, then I'll come down here. I'm trying to go in order as I saw hands. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Tiffany Totten. I've been a member of this community since 1998.
Yes.
These 6 positions that you're proposing, will those be employees of the town of Bonanza, or are they Klamath County Sheriff's Department employees? Who is their employer?
I think that's a great question, and I think that you all should have a say in that.
And you said part of that excess of the 200,000 beyond their 800,000 in their salary would be equipment, vehicles, and a place to work. So is that additionally proposing that a workstation unit is going to be built in Bonanza? And would Bonanza be the seed of this, because we're also covering Sprague River, Blind Beatty areas?
So, I want to be careful how I answer this. And the only reason is because I have thoughts in my head, but my thoughts don't matter as much as yours when it comes to the answers to those questions. Been married 27 years, man. So the answer to your question is difficult. I believe you should have a say in how that goes. So should this start to get legs and we start to say, yes, this is what we want, I think we're going to have a lot more conversations like this to kind of work out all of those details. I can tell you right now, this is in its infancy. I wouldn't have this thing 100% figured out and then come tell you guys how to do it. I don't think that's how government works. It's not my job to tell you how something is supposed to be. I can give you the framework. I can tell you how the statutes read on some of the things that have to be done. But I don't think it's proper or right for me to dictate to you any more than I would want to be dictated by Salem or Washington, D.C. on how we do things in Klamath County. This is localizing things to, a smaller level. And I believe that you all should have a say in all of those things. Where should that headquarters be? Who should be their employers? How does that work? I believe all of you deserve to have some input there and talk to the sheriff's office and talk to the town and say, hey, what would it look like if this was you?
So, and then also, if those who are arrested would go to Klamath County Jail,
Yes.
what is the cost that Klamath County would charge against this for saving beds there?
0.
Is that in writing?
We can put it in writing. So it's the same amount. So I want to be clear, you're still Klamath County taxpayers. The $1.73 $1,000 that you pay in your property taxes doesn't go away. Right? That's there to fund the services that are currently being delivered, including the jail. The people that live in the city of Klamath Falls don't pay extra for their criminals to go to Klamath County Jail. They just go there, right? Same with Merrill, Berlin, and other law enforcement agencies, including the tribes. Their cops can arrest somebody and bring them to Klamath County Jail and we'll house them there. Because you're already paying for that. You don't have to pay twice.
So Klamath County is also saying Klamath County Sheriff's Department, for their vacant positions that they have open, that there's no applicant pool. Where's the applicant pool to hire 6 positions that
That's a
are willing to
great
become
question.
and be stationed in Bonanza?
We'll start there. So, one second, sorry, a couple down here that I will make sure that I come over, but I'm trying to get them in the order. But those are all great questions, but I think that we have that figured out. One of the things to note, because of the statute, the governing body of the district is still going to be the Klamath County Commissioners. I actually didn't want it to be that way. I wanted it to be an independent board, elected, of people that live in the district. But we have to control the budget. We don't run the department. We don't run a lot of stuff, but we have to control the budget. What I have proposed, because of that, are people familiar with the budget process at all? Okay, so the budget committee is, and I'll get to your questions, but I do want to make sure that I cover this. The budget committee is made up of 6 individuals. 3 of them are the Board of County Commissioners, or 3 are citizens of Klamath County. And we sit every year and we go through the budget and figure everything out. I have proposed, and it's been pretty much agreed to, right, we need to put all of this in writing, that the budget committee for this district would be made up of 6 individuals, and all 3 citizens members would be people that live in the district, so that you have an equal say in how the money is being spent. I want to make that clear. It is my goal. I believe in local control. I believe in local government. And I want to make sure that you guys are saying, yes, I'm willing to pay for this. That you get a say in how the money's spent. That's only right. I'm going to do this one and I'll be right up for you. Yes, sir.
2 parts. One of the questions asked about arresting authority. I know for a fact that code enforcement officers do not have arresting authority.
Correct.
Haven't been one here for 5 months, about 2 years ago myself. The second part is the entity you're wanting to create. Someone asked how we're going to get this started. You answered part of my budget question, that who's going to be the administrative people to start the budget and so forth. Commissioners, I was going to say you can mimic what the commissioners do if there's other things you don't expect to do. I understand all that now. I was a budget analyst for the federal government. I'm retired. I made millions of dollars for many years for the government. But the next question is, that hasn't been asked yet, around 60% of the owners of properties do not live in this county. If I'm not mistaken, they do not have a vote on this tax, is that correct?
That is correct. So one of the last part of the question comes to this stuff. Who gets to vote? Right? Since it's bought on tax law, do each individual landowner get to vote? The answer is no. Klamath County registered voters get to vote. So if you're one of the nearly 11,000 landowners that don't live in Klamath County, you don't get a say in the problem that you're creating. We get a say. Actually, you. I don't live. Y'all get a say. I don't get to vote. Right? And I'm going to be honest with you, folks. This is in response to what you said, hey, come up with a solution. I don't have skin in this game other than the fact that I want to be responsive to your concerns. That's it. So.
My second part is, I'm sorry, were you finished it?
Yeah, no, I was going to move on. I didn't know you had more.
Just a suggestion maybe to get this help started is create a steering committee
Yeah.
With the help of, not necessarily the budget committee, that would come after, but create a steering committee of about maybe, 6 people in the county to help work with the commissioners and abide by the organized statutes. And that's the beginning, and you can go from there.
So the suggestion was form I'm just going to call this, you said steering committee, but an advisory committee to the Board of Commissioners to help get things started and really shape how these services are delivered. I agree with that. One of the things that we talked about, if we did say, okay, how would you do that? We could say, hey, we can have one representative from Bonanza, one from the Spring River area, Beatty, and so on, to make sure that we had a committee made up of the majority, yes, so that people felt quote unquote represented. Hopefully you feel represented when I'm here, but we can make sure it's in multiple ways. Okay, so now I'm going to come up here. I have 3, and then I'll come back to this side of the room. Oh, no, you're right. Because I did say you were next. I will get to your 3, but I did tell them.
So I'm assuming by what you're saying here with the Klamath County Sheriff's Office, that I kind of assumed or was hoping that with the new sheriff being elected, that maybe some of these resident deputy positions would be put back in place. I'm assuming you're saying the money's not there for this? Or is that not possible, or?
It's potentially possible. I would say it's not guaranteed.
Okay.
So I don't know the answer to that. With the new sheriff is going to run his department how he decides to run his department, right? It's going to be he, right? Only 2. But I don't know if they're going to have resident deputies or not. I don't know what the funding necessarily is going to look like year over year. I can tell you, and folks, go ahead and give me a call if you want, but the 5-year funding model is pretty bleak.
So, and I'll be honest with you, the only problem I have with this is the very simple fact that it's not going to raise my property taxes $72. It's going to raise mine a little over 1,000.
I understand.
So that's the issue I have. But
Yes. And it's difficult, and I totally understand that. I would say if we did it the other way, and it was $3.25 a thousand,
it's going to be about the same, yeah, or maybe more. Yeah,
it would be.
yeah,
So.
yeah.
All right, now I'm going to come over here, and then I'll come over there, I promise. So we're going to go in a triangle like this. So we'll start here, then up here, and then over here, okay? Go Navy.
First, I'd like to thank you, Commissioner, for hearing our needs, is what we're looking for, and coming up with a proposed plan. Unfortunately, that gentleman there stole my thunder. So a couple of things have already been ticked off.
Okay.
But I did have a question regarding jurisdiction. Perhaps you mentioned it, but who has jurisdiction at the sheriff's department, troopers, whomever, if an incident happens within this county area?
So who had, I'm going to say I don't know the answer to your question. You call 911, you're probably going to get dispatched immediately, the people that are within the district.
One is the fire chief.
Right. Yeah, so it would be the folks within the district that would get probably that first call out, unless there wasn't anybody on duty, which they would know, in which case they would alert the sheriff's department.
And then, just to touch on another point, which someone brought up, using speeding tickets and stuff. What about a major drug bust, where there's tens of thousands of dollars in cash, there's vehicles, there's a lot of assets that can be liquidated? Would that stay in the community?
So I'm going to say I am not the expert on property forfeiture by arrest. So I don't know. There's a whole thing to that.
His question was, what he asked him to answer was the non-voting. He was concerned about these 10,000 people.
They don't get a
They
say.
had a chance to vote.
No, that's the penalty for being a pain in our
Just
toes.
gonna get a bill.
Right.
Okay, sounds good.
So, sir, up here. That's correct. From Beatty. I don't know the answer. Okay, what's the response time gonna look like? I don't know. I'm gonna make it sure, folks, that it's clear. I am by no means a policing professional. I'm not a cop, I've never been a cop. What I do know is I know how to structure stuff, and I do know budgets, right? This is kind of where my expertise comes in. Once it's formed, how it's policed, what those response times look like, what's those shifts look like, you might as well ask me to make you an espresso, because I don't know how to do that either. Yes. Yeah. I would say, and we can look to the people that have been cops in the room, that if there's people out here patrolling out here, the reason it's an hour is they're having to leave from all the way over in Cloud Falls. The people will be inside your area. That's not your district. They could be on the call somewhere. I can tell you a heck of a lot more than you have now.
Commissioner, if I can I step in just for a second?
Yeah.
I think that the big part of this, it's a lot of money. I myself would end up, with the property we live on, that's for tax loss as well. And so it's not something $2 for them either. I think when I look at this, and that perspective is that the entire county of Klamath at any given time only has 3 patrol officers. That's it, and that's only because that's minimum staffing, and they're not at 24-hour patrols. So there's certain times during the day that you call and there is not an officer on duty. So to me, it's adding 4 new patrol deputies and a sergeant just in our area. And no, it might not be 24-hour patrols, but it's a heck of a lot more than what we have now. And so I just want to emphasize that if we continue, we don't have anything out here at this time. And if, like you mentioned earlier, somebody calls and then something happens in the urban growth area, they're going to the urban growth area. They're not coming out here. And this makes it to where these officers are not going anywhere but our district. They do not go to Chilton, they don't go to Shemalt, they don't go to Keno. They're not even going to Ground Lake, they're coming Bonanza, maybe Black. And we don't know what that looks like. It's in its infant phase, but it's more than what we have now.
So the question over there essentially was, is it going to be any better than we have now? I mean, I'm shortening it, but because they kind of told a story. But how is the level of service going to be compared to what I have now? A lot better. Provided we get all the positions filled, a lot better. You have 6 people that are dedicated to your region, right? It just is better. I'm going to finish over here. We'll come back. I promise I will not leave. Make this because I'll be the last one to leave the gym. Okay? So. I'll try to repeat them if that helps. Sorry, so just ask if I would introduce myself. Everybody might not know my name's Derek DeGroot. I'm one of the 3 Klamath County Commissioners. Yeah.
Thank you for coming, sir.
Here, we'll do this.
I'm not going to say.
Same.
Overall, I like the program a lot. I think it's very reasonable. I think it's certainly needed, and I think everybody will agree with that. And, my concern as a former officer is that there's 2 officers on duty
So your question gets a little bit into the weeds. I would say that anything is doable. If it's run by the sheriff's department, it's obviously things that we need to talk to the other deputies about, make sure it's fair for all of the deputies. But we give spiffs or stipends to deputies now for certain things. Adding the fact that they live in the district to one of those is certainly not unreasonable, and that would be something that the Board of Commissioners would deal with, that you probably correct me on and put that in the collective bargaining agreement. So the former president's here, so he can probably tell us a little bit better than that. But, yeah. All right. Who was first over here? All right. We're going to try to get to everyone.
Two-part question. First is, you mentioned the sergeant that would be in charge of the officers. Who would the sergeant ultimately answer to? Possibly a commissioner on the council, or is there going to be like a lieutenant or captain or something? And then the second part is,
Yeah, I can do
sustainability. You mentioned, 10 years down the road, we might have to up it. Is there any sort of active grants or anything like that we could be looking out for to keep on stuff? Just throwing it out there. I don't know.
So we're going to go the opposite direction because you really made some ladies excited back here. One of the things that the town of Bonanza has been looking at, if I get this wrong, throws up at me, is grants. Just for the town to be able to provide policing. And without a police department, it's very difficult to get the grants. Having this in place would make them eligible to get grants for all types of things. Typically, I will tell you, operating grants are not necessarily the ones that you want to go after, but you get a lot of infrastructure grants for vehicles and for equipment and for all of these different things. And then those dollars offset costs that you can use for people. So that's that question. I said I could do too.
The sergeant.
Oh, yeah, sorry. So whoever ends up heading this agency, who do they answer to? And I think that depends on who they work for. So there's a model where it works for the sheriff's office. They would answer to the sheriff. There's a model where it's more independent, so they would work for the Board of Commissioners or for an independent body that was put in place here. So for folks who want to look at what an independent body looks like, I would just recommend going and researching the Sun River Police Department. That's what an independent body looks like. Right on there.
Instead of a tax basis, did you consider an owner basis?
Did not.
Okay, us, like that gentleman over there, we have 25 tax lots, so that puts us over $1,800 additional per year. So this gentleman next to me has 2 tax lots. I'm not getting any more service than he is. Why should we be paying more?
I think it's a fair and legitimate question. I just looked at, so these are the only two ways that it can be done. By owner, it would be nearly impossible to track, right? So by tax law, that would be a lot. I'm just going to tell you just from being in there, that's all. No, that wasn't looked at, and I don't know if it's even possible. I am going to look to see if it's possible, and then we can take a look at what that does. I don't know if it's possible or not. But I will say a lot of the landowners that also don't live here also own a lot of lots. Those lots have no value and still be paying nothing if it was done by value. So this was a way to try to make it as fair as possible. And I will say this, nothing will be perfect. Promise. But I will try to do my best. It's a great suggestion. I'll look at it. I don't know if it's possible or not. What do you think?
Just for the one. Yes, go.
Sheriff's Department, how much?
Your property taxes are $1.73 a thousand.
Okay,
please keep in mind that's more than just the sheriff's department. That pays for anything that's funded by the general fund. And the general fund pays for a few different services. We're trying to take people out of the general fund all the time, different departments, because quite frankly, the general fund can't support it. But the general fund pays for the sheriff's department, all functions of the sheriff's department right now, which is patrol, civil, jail, search and rescue, animal control, and others. It pays for the district attorney, it pays for half of the juvenile department, it pays for the assessor's office that assesses the value of property taxes, it pays for the tax collector, it pays for the clerk's office. So there's a lot of different things that are funded and maintained by the general fund, and that's what $1.73 goes to, including, of course, 5 cents off of that automatically goes to veteran services.
So you don't have it broken down for 1,000, how much directly is the sheriff's department?
Well, I will tell you this, and this is part of the structural problems that we have currently in county government. The sheriff's department's budget is more than we take in taxes. About $2 million.
So what is their total budget?
This year, I believe it's 16 million, that's up 16 million.
Looked at it a couple years ago and it was 14, so.
Yeah. So we kick, scratch, fight for every dollar we can possibly get. For folks that were watching the news, reading the paper, we tried to put together a plan that would get us another $2.5 million from the federal government. They found every which way we could to try to kill it, did. We're going to try it again, maybe. It loses some control of some dollars for us, so we'll see what that looks like. But trying to raise dollars and get more money from the state and the federal government's been something that I've really focused on for the last 8 years. It's definitely a challenge. Everybody on the board kind of has their thing that they're good at. The budget is one of them. I'm good at figuring out how much should be spent or can be spent. I think it's more than should be spent, it can be spent. So I was explaining that today to some folks. So I'm going to get up. I said I was going to get on someplace now. We can't just use dollars anywhere for anything. That's against the law. So if I say, if you go to the landfill and I charge you an extra $1, I just charge everybody an extra $1 at the landfill, and then we can support patrol services. That's against the law. If you charge a fee for a specific thing, it has to be used to fund the operation of that thing. If you go get a building permit to build a house, I can't take a portion of that permit and use it for the clerk's office, or the assessor's office, or the district attorney. That's against the law. So figuring out what you're able to spend dollars on. So those are enterprise departments. If that wasn't against the law, then we don't have to have this conversation. I don't have to ask you for anything. Voters don't get a say. I never have to ask for taxes again. I just raise all your fees and spend them however I want. That's wrong, right? So that's why those sideboards are in place to make sure whatever we decide the fees in the building department should be, it's really just for the operation of that department and nothing else. And we try to make sure that as much as possible, we're user-based. The people who are needing the service are paying for the service as much as possible. And that's not going to be perfect, ever. And we'll certainly not within the funds, the general fund of the departments that provide those services. But as much as possible, we're getting departments out of them, turning them into enterprise funds so that they can sustain themselves. Because going to you and asking for property taxes, how would you feel if I said I'm going to raise your taxes so that the building department can help other people build houses? You wouldn't feel very good about that. But saying, I'm going to make sure that their fees cover what they're asking us to do, that's appropriate. So. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Commissioner Nichols, and I live in this district. Along with what you were just saying, what guardrails are in place to ensure, because I'm sure there's, just like somebody talked about down here, what if we can't hire the 4 officers, right? So then there's a surplus of funds that aren't being spent on public safety in this district. What's stopping you or the sheriff or anybody else from manipulating those dollars back to other people within a public safety program or something like that? What guardrails are in place to ensure any surplus either goes back to the citizens or in a reserve?
Steel bracelets. That's the easy answer to this. What prevents me from taking money out of this district and spending it somewhere else? The answer is steel bracelets. It's against the law. If we create this district and you say, as the citizens who live within it, the registered voters, that we are going to pay for this service, the only thing that it can be used for is paying for that service. Let's say, for instance, that we were having a horrible time hiring anybody. Horrible time hiring anybody, as people are having all across the country, right? I believe that this is going to be some of the most stable funding for law enforcement people in the county. So I think that's going to be an attractor to why people would want to work for it. It's stable funding. A lot of the other funding is not as stable, right? It's having a hard time because it's competing with other services. Sometimes mandatory services for that same dollar, right? But as we were having a hard time, so we're going to share a person, and that person is going to work for an agency that provides services here and here. Number one, I think it's a bad idea. I think that we want the people that get paid out of this money to work just here. But let's say for a brief period of time we needed to share something. When they cross that line, no dollar from this district can be used to pay their wages. Does that make sense? So, I'm going to put it into context. We have in the past, and I don't think that they work very well, but we have signed contracts with municipalities. We signed a contract with the town of Bonanza, where the sheriff's department would come out and do additional patrols for a fee. And those, we didn't get charged the town of Bonanza until we crossed into their borders. We would do some patrolling. When we left, the clock stops. That's all we were able to charge the town. So it is against the law to use those dollars anywhere but there. I think that's the example I'm trying to paint. I don't believe that it would be appropriate to share people, but sometimes, I don't know, I guess if you have back into that more, that'd be something you could do. I'm going to finish over here. I'm going to make it up to you, I promise. Was there anybody else over here? Awesome, I will come back down here. Let's get a new person a chance. Sorry, Freddie.
Our address is evolved. I think if you come this side of South Pole, it's Bonanza. Would we still be in the Bonanza district, or would you know?
So it's not done by address, it's done by the GIS system within those boundaries. So if you come over to the map and you find your house, you're in the district, right? So if you're in this green section, if you go to this other side over here, that's more my tax line, it's a little bit smaller. We've been trying to make as many maps, I can't take maps. But you'll be able to tell by that. If you have a question and the map just isn't detailed enough, call me, I'll tell you whether or not you're in the district. So the question was whether or not they're in the district. Yes, ma'am?
So it's going to take time to write and campaign the measure to get it on the ballot. Then there has to be a vote before those tax funds can even start to be collected. So to get enough seed money to start, we're looking at 1 to 2 years. Or is there a pot for seed money or a grant or a bond so that to speed up the process? What kind of timeline are we looking at before there are officers on the ground?
It's a great question. So where does the startup cost come from? How long are we talking until we have people, actually officers on the ground patrolling the area? This is not going to be a perfect answer, but it's going to be more generalized, okay? So one of the things that we did before we did this is we bounced around with a few other folks as well. So internally, just working with staff, other electeds, the assessor, the clerk, our lawyers, all the stuff to try to make sure that it works. Then I came and made a presentation to the town of Bonanza. Then I made a presentation to the Council of Governments. I don't know if people are familiar with that, but that has leadership from every one of the municipalities, county government, and the tribes. And then to the policing task force, which is a subset of that, of the Council of Governments. And then I took it also to the county commissioners. So far, everybody is in agreement that we should at least try, that we should look. This is the response to the concerns that we heard. So there won't have to be a signature gathering. The county commissioners can just place this on the ballot, and they've committed to do so. So that is myself, Commissioner Minty, Commissioner Hensley have committed, yes, we can just put this on the ballot. It would go on the ballot in May. We would start working on a budget thereafter. Taxes would be collected in November, and the place would be up and running with its own revenues at that time. We've also talked about, but it hasn't been decided yet, what could the county do to help get some seed money in place to stand up, really, the station, right? The substation, or station, whatever it may be here in Concord. There's support for that, trying to locate those one-time dollars. One-time dollars are a lot easier to find than operating funds, because once you commit to them, you have to commit to them year over year over year over year. One-time funds to stand the department up, I believe that we would be able to locate and be able to provide. Right? That's just going without something for just a little while in order to do something that's critical. And I think what are those things? Really the most important things is building a police station. And we're finding a building within the district. The most common consensus is that the town of Bonanza would be the seat where things would be stationed out of. But that's not necessarily set in stone. But we would find a building that exists and we'll build something in order to house those 6 individuals. Or bigger. And one of the questions is, how big should it be? Again, up to you.
The old butcher shop is for sale.
The old butcher shop is for sale. That's awesome. Where's the police department? The old butcher shop.
You can hang them by the
Oh, if I wasn't being recorded. There's so much stuff. What I'm going to do is put over here, then I'm going to come back, okay? Yes, ma'am. No. May would be the deciding point, right? May 15th of this next year. I think it's the 15th. Election.
So just so you all know too, in the short term, we get it, we don't have any police out here. So in the last year, the town of Bonanza, I have to give a shout out to Sherry, to Betty Tyree, to everyone who's done things. We have done everything we can to find a localized solution. Obviously, the town of Bonanza, I'm loving it. It's not very big, and so the tax base here can't support a police district. We didn't feel right not including the community. I know almost everyone in this room who is part of this community, even Beatty, Bly, Landra Valley, all the way to Derry, to Sprague River. This is a localized East County problem, and so we were really happy when the commissioners came to us, and it was so inclusive. We've worked with other municipalities to try to get some of those hour bases in. Nobody can support us. You know, we've done what we can. We know it's important. We all live in this community. We have kids in this community. We grew up. I understand things have happened that are terrible, and we don't have a police force. We don't have anything that we can offer. And so coming here today, I'm happy that you all came, because we are so thankful that the commissioners took this on and came up with some sort of a solution to us, because the town has done everything we can. And we are great at doing grants. We're on YouTube, and I'm not afraid to say it. Sherry is the best person in the world at getting grants. And I have no doubt once this gets stood up that we can find other opportunities once it's stood up. But
well, in reality, if we're not going to pay for it, we're never going to have it.
No.
In one of our policing districts, and correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioner, we were told that sheriff that patrols are not a requirement. Is that correct? Okay. My concern with this is that patrols are not a requirement, but is the first thing that will be cut when we can't pay wages. If those are cut, we're going to be even worse off. And so yes, it is a big ask, especially for people who have 22 tax lots, or those who may have millions of dollars that it would be assessed at $325 per thousand. I mean, that's a huge ask. But my concern is that even in the near future, we may have nothing from the sheriff's office even. So something to consider.
Thank you. Okay. I think she was next, and then I'm going to come over to you, and then I'll be up again. All right. Thanks.
Beginning with her baby, as an example, we were burned by the Wood Lake Fire in 2021.
have one developed lot, two others that aren't developed in home, that I would assume would get that, would double the taxes on that house. There needs to be, I don't know, there needs to be some concessions done for the lots that aren't developed versus the lots that are developed. We can't afford a 30% tax on this.
We have lots that are adjoining each other, you know, it's not like, you know, so it's like one lot for us, but us, it's like one lot, that's how it's treated, and they're gonna get taxed on 4 different lots, or how should you do a separate tax lot like this? And I see that I'm gonna get 4 times protection on my neighbor. I don't want to combine it.
It's a suggestion, so the conversation was, you know, we have multiple tax lots, it does hit us a little bit harder. One suggestion that was made was combining tax lots. You can look at property line vacations to make it one big tax lot or 2 bigger tax lots. You can look at those types of things. I will look at the owner thing as that was suggested. I don't know if that's possible or not. I will just say that of all of the ways in looking at it, for the people that actually live in that district, in this area, this is the fairest thing that I can come up with. I definitely think it was more fair than doing it by value. If we did it again by value, the people that are predominantly causing the problems pay nothing, and the people who live here pay everything. And that just didn't seem right to me. I do understand your circumstance. Again, I will say, there's no way to make this perfect for everyone. I'll do my best. I'll take every suggestion. We'll go back and look at things. We'll do our best. And I understand your position and your plight. You know, when things come and hit my tax bill as a voter, I vote yes or no on stuff based on what I'm willing to pay for and what I'm not. And some things I'm not. And I get that. So I would go to the planning department, give them a call, or you know what? Shoot me a call or an email, and I'll look at it for you. Because vacating lot lines is something that we do all the time. Okay. I'm making my way back. It would.
It's either that or the city tax. Nobody wants to do property taxes and do city taxes.
Yeah.
On sales, and everybody.
Oh, sales taxes? Yeah. Yes, no, I know. Yes, absolutely. Also making sure that I don't get shot. We had for Chief, yeah.
Okay. You guys probably hear me, I'm pretty loud. My name's Tom Hoy, I'm the chief police in the city of Tule Lake right now. I have policed this area off and on since 2017 under 2 different agencies, one of which was Klamath County Sheriff's Office, and I know they're very short-handed. I'd like to, hats off to you for coming up with this idea. I think it's really thinking outside the box. I think it's great, and I know how it is to have to try to find employees, but I don't think it would be a problem, honestly, and especially if, and there's 2 points to this too. Working out here as a rural deputy, I loved it. I tried to stay out here. I should also let you know, I don't have a vote in this. I live in Keno. I don't have a vote, but I can tell you, and that's why I want to talk to the voters more so to you, not much of a question, more of a statement. If this is left in the hands of the sheriff's office as well, nothing against sheriff's office. They have great deputies, they have great leadership, a lot of them. But you will have that constant struggle of people getting pulled for different duties. You're going to have somebody's going to be in training, and they're going to want to rotate and take one of your guys and give you another guy that's not going to know the area. I would highly recommend leaning towards your independent agency like you're talking about. They will know the area, they will know the people, and that's 90% of success in law enforcement is knowing your citizens, knowing the area, and not just getting some guy that doesn't want to be here because he got pulled and rotated in. So my suggestion is stay with the independent if you get a chance to vote for that.
Are you volunteering?
Do you want a new job?
I would seriously consider it.
We'll pay for your move here.
I would seriously consider it. You find me at 80 acres on the mountain somewhere like I have, you know, but I do love this area, and I think I've helped a lot of you guys on different calls. And Betty asked me to be here tonight just to try to get my vibe on how this is looking, and I think it's awesome. I know it's a little bit more money, and to answer your question, man, why is it worth more for you to have more tax lots where if somebody else is getting the same amount for their one tax lot? That's a tough spot, and it's a question that I know you can't answer, but the one thing that comes to mind initially is you do have more exposure to the possibility of crime than somebody in a smaller spot. I guess you could look at it that way, but it's a tough balance to even walk. But I think you're going in a really good direction, and again, hats off to you for coming up with it.
Thanks, Chief. More questions? Yes, sir.
Going back, earlier I believe you stated that this, as it's currently proposed, would only last us about 10 years, and then we start to get the same boat the sheriff is currently in. Is that correct?
Not necessarily. I think what you start to see is creep. What you start to see is the cost of the service versus the revenues that the $72 per tax lot provides, right? So, problem, and I also want to be clear, 10 years, there's a lot of speculating in that. It's an educated guess right now, right? So thereabouts. Somebody could end up coming out here and saying, hey folks, I run your budget, this is where we're at. We raised 1.1, it now costs 1.2 to run this agency at the same service levels. How do you guys feel about going to $74 a tax lot? That's going to happen at some point, because we're not creating a whole bunch of more tax lots. In fact, I think the opposite will be true. I think you'll probably lose a few. But again, I think that there's some room in what we're proposing today to be able to absorb that. I would love for there to be more tax lots. What do you build a subdivision? So, you know. But yes, at some point in the future, and again, please don't use that 10 years as, he said 10 years, it's exactly that. So that's that. But at some point in the future, yes, that will occur where you guys have to have a conversation. Well, let's say you fall in love with him. What if you fall in love with him and go, like, this is the best thing that's ever happened to us out here? When I have a call for help, I get help. You know what I wish I had? A little more. That'll be up to you too. Won't be up to me, right? You can say, hey, I'm willing to pay 90 if it means I get 2 more costs. You know, that'll be up to you. That's a community decision for you guys to sit around and talk about, for us to have forums like this. Now, please keep in mind, I'm going to be in Spring River next Wednesday. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to give that same presentation. I've been asked, hey, we can go to Bly, we can go to Vape. You tell me where, I'll come talk about it. I'm happy to, because the most important thing that we can do in this conversation is make sure that your questions are answered, that you feel like you're making an educated decision. It's expensive. Everything's always expensive. None of us are getting, you know, our economy hasn't been awesome the last few years. Groceries are double, gas is double, everything's so much more expensive. Yes, this is an additional expense as well, but is it providing something that you want? That's what you have to ask yourself. And is the juice worth the squeeze? I believe we've done the best to try to make it as fair as possible. I am going to look into your inquiry. We'll give it a shot.
Commissioner,
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this. Do you know the difference between, so city police is 24-hour patrols. They don't need grants. They're fully funded. Do you know how much city taxes people pay to?
$5 a thousand.
$5 a thousand. So, and we're paying, and ours isn't going straight to the sheriff, we're paying, you said $1.75.
Yep.
So I think that's something just, I guess, to
City Crown Falls taxes are expensive, and almost all of the money from the taxes go to their police force. And they have a great police force. And again, we're not talking about replicating an urban level of policing here. This is still going to be a rural agency. You know, the response time inside the city of Climate Falls is ridiculously quick. I called the police at the apartment building the other day, but the people that live there pay a heck of a lot of money for that. I'll tell you, my property tax went a lot.
So you said that the commissioners can deem that the measure goes on the ballot in May.
Mhm.
So these town events are campaigning for that to happen. What is the trigger that it's going to be on the ballot in May?
So really trying to take a sense of and get some feedback. If I showed up here and tomatoes are thrown at me, it gives me a sense of go home, right? Or I come here and we have these conversations, and I'm going to have another conversation with you, and I just want to be able to get the feedback from you folks that says we're willing to talk about it. And if you're willing to talk about it, the answer to the conversation is a ballot, right? That's how we get our voices heard. So that's what it is. And I don't want anyone to feel like I'm campaigning for this. I'm not. I've campaigned 3 times, folks. I'm tired, right? So this is just in response to the concerns that you guys had when I was here last. And that was a rough night. But we heard you loud and clear. It's a rough night. We heard you loud and clear. It was find a solution. This is the best I've been able to come up with. I would also say, in the time between now and say January, February, will we make a decision or not to put it on the ballot, things can change. We can reshape it. We can have conversations like this that say, Derek, we want it like this, or we want it like that, and massage this thing. Take input. Do more research. I have people that will research all the law books and tell me if that your idea is legal or not, or, you know, there was one recommendation that, hey, can we pay a little bit more and beef this up a little bit? If that was a resounding sense from all of you, I'd say, okay, what's the number? You tell me the number. I came up with this number. You tell me the number. Is it, hey, we want to be able to hire 10 people, not 6. I can tell you what that costs. I can do the math. I can put all that stuff together and say, hey, that's $112 a tax, or whatever it is. I'm making up stuff in my head, but that's my proposal. So, I guess that's the answer to your question is, let's just talk about it. Because ultimately you get to decide, I don't. So, I think there was one young lady here, and then we're going to work our way back, okay?
My name is Susan Ruiz Tyree. I think I know most everybody. I'm actually the secretary for the fire department. So, one thing that I want you guys to, I hear, you know, I have 10 tax lots, I have 1 tax lot. Something that I want you guys to think about is that when we first started the volunteer fire department, our insurance rates as homeowners were skyrocketed because we didn't have a response time in order to help your insurance rates. Through lots of work, through lots of training, through new stations, through designated water sources, through all of these things, our insurance rates, your insurance rates, have been able to decrease, thus helping you not have to pay so much insurance. I see your head, and in all honesty, we actually for the most part in the city limits of Bonanza, our insurance rates went from a 9 to a 5Y, which is a huge amount. So having this, there's a good possibility that having this capabilities, having a response, they may decrease your insurance rates. I know that sounds silly, but insurance is set to go up 23% this year. That's how much, when I did my budget for the fire department, 23% is how much I had to increase our insurance. Think about that. So $72 for a tax lot, and there's a possibility that our insurance would decrease knowing that we would have law enforcement in our communities. It's just a talking point. I have no stake in this, but it's a talking point, and it's something you guys need to think about because insurance is a huge amount right now.
How is it any different if I had 100 acres on 4 lots and somebody had 100 acres on 1 lot? Still the same amount of land. Cost me 4 times as much as it cost them. Not covering more land, not covering more, you know.
But if you have 4 tax lots,
Same
do you,
amount of land.
but do you have more stuff on those tax lots?
No, only one's developed. They're all adjoining.
Like I said, we can take a look at vacating it, trying to make it.
What's that?
We can take a look at vacating some lot lines.
Or establish this so a non-developed lot has less of a rate on it than a developed lot. I understand, and they're gonna get a lot of money from people out of town. Most of the property owners.
I'm just saying, the only thing that I'm saying is that there is a good possibility that we would be able to benefit from having this in our community because we have a designated source of law enforcement. Same as we have a designated source of fire protection, insurance rates decreased.
So I'm gonna work my way back this direction, and we'll just kind of work my way back. I'll make a comment over here in a little bit. You in the Navy, sir?
So, I'm Larry White.
Yeah.
Bonanza.
Okay.
I appreciate the time and thought went into this proposal. Spent a lot of time, crunched a lot of numbers.
Did.
What I'm hearing, and what I think you're gonna be hearing as you go from community to community is, I got 15 lots. I can't afford to pay 72 times 15. So is there a backup plan or ability to crunch these numbers based on some of the input that some of these folks have said?
So I would say this, based on the numbers that I crunched for the people that live in this community, if we did it, the other way to do it is by value. And if we do it by value, the people that live in this community pay a lot more. So the people that don't live in this community pay a heck of a lot less. So when I talk about people that live in this community, I'm looking at all y'all. If we do it by value, which we can do, you do pay quite a bit more than this proposal as a whole. Maybe not individually, because again, nothing's going to be perfect. There's going to be outliers. But as a whole, people that live in the community pay a lot more. I'll tell you, this might be really, really bad timing. What's that? Can't do that. We have to be. It has to be legal. I was in town, and it's tax time, and we're all getting our tax bills. A gentleman came up to me and said, I have to pay $30,000 in property taxes this year. I said, wow, you're doing really well. So, might not be a good time, but I thought it was funny to me then, it was less funny to him. I think I was here and then there. Yes, sir.
I don't need that.
Okay.
Thanks anyway. I moved to Bonanza in 1995, 94, 95. It was when they had the problem with water down there and getting into the aquifer runoff, agricultural runoff. If I told you how much I paid for that house that I live in, you would cry. The property taxes, property values were so depressed at that time because of the problem with the water. And the same thing is true of the crime in the Bonanza area. I'm telling you, your house values and your property values are all going to go up if you've got a police department. People are going to come in here that you're not going to hear the terrible stories about Blind Mountain because those problems are going to go away. You're not going to be hearing those anymore. And those 114 acres or whatever you got, all those are going to go up in value. Now, it's already reflected in your property taxes here. That's the whole point of what we're talking about here. So it's not an additional cost to you, except for the cost of the police department. But this whole town, I mean, one of the first things you realize about it is it has no police protection. It's got a fire department, but it has no police. So either, and things are only getting worse in this country. So you gotta make up your mind, are you gonna have vigilante justice or are you gonna have police department? Because that's gonna be your choices in the next few years.
Ma'am? You all can make it go away. You can vote again and make it go away. You put it on the ballot and make it go away. You can do that. You can dissolve a district. So, but I mean, once there's a tax base, it has to be voter approved, right? So, if you're completely dissatisfied, there's ways out. It's not like it'd be there forever. Just like starting things, it's very difficult to end things. So it's not like you get to snap your fingers and make it go away, right? I'm here with the whole truth and nothing but the truth, folks. I mean, once it's there, the likelihood of it ever going away is probably fairly low. So I'm going to make my way this way. I'll come back, but I'm trying to be fair as we go. Yes, sir.
One last question for me. Who's going to do the managing month-to-month budgeting for this district of ours? Will it be done by the same as? Okay. Well, that's okay.
Or my successor.
Or, okay.
Whatever you
Would it be
decide to kick me out.
at the county level? In other words, the entity that we're creating here, if it gets approved and so forth and go forward, the budget you said will stay in
The governing body of the, so it's called a special service district.
Okay.
And the governing body of every special service district in a county is governed by the Board of Commissioners.
Okay, so you'll...
Board of Commissioners.
So the logistics will be as the sheriff there's people in the county building that actually do all the finance. That finance will do the day-to-day paying the checks and all that kind of stuff through those.
We'll handle all the payroll. You're good. You're good. Okay, I'm going to make my way, then I'll circle back to this. Anyone else? Yes?
I might have missed it, but you have two proposals here, appraised value and tax lots.
Yep.
What's going to make a decision on that?
These conversations. I think the leading option right now is number 2, my tax lot.
Yeah.
That's what's leading right now. But if y'all told me, no, that's not the way we want to go, then we would look at something else. And the other idea. So please, it's not mine, it's your guys'. So.
Do you want to raise it now per thousand for paying for the sheriffs that don't show up?
$1.73. But again, that pays for a lot more than just the sheriff's department. That $1.73 right now is spread out pretty thin. And again, so folks know, the county's permanent tax rate's $1.73. Folks, remember that we made a decision as a community years ago that we were also going to prioritize veteran services. So 5 cents, just under 5 cents per thousand comes off the top every year. We send it to our veterans department to make sure that we're doing outreach to veterans in our community. So if that sentiment were to ever change, so 2 things: 1, I'm moving, and 2, then there would be that additional resource. But I think our community has said as a whole, veterans are a priority to us. Folks that know the national average of how the percentage of the population that has served in the armed forces, anywhere, less than 1%. Klamath County is over 12%. Right? We have a lot of veterans in our community. And I will tell you, we have veterans that move to our community specifically because of how we treat them and how we honor them and how we make sure that there's resources for them if they're hurting or in trouble. So it's something that I'm very proud of this community, the way we take care of those folks, and all of you should be just as proud of how we take care of those folks here. So just wanted to One, we have 7:30. And only one text from my wife. We're doing pretty good. Again, the next town hall is next Wednesday, 6 o'clock in Sprague River. Does anybody know where Sprague River? I don't. I wake up in the morning and staff tell me where to go. Community center, I think. Yeah. So I'll be in Sprague, community center. So I'll be in Sprague River next Wednesday. If folks know of other places or other conversations we want to continue to have while we're doing this kind of initial one, please let me know. There's going to be this round of stuff, a lot of me gauging the sentiment of the community and the people that live here. Also getting a lot of feedback so that we can make sure that what we put together is really what you want. And then as things develop and you say, yes, Commissioner, please, thank you, this is what we want to do. Then we'll have probably a whole other round of these after the first of the year. Make sure that we're getting it right, or as close to as right as we can. Again, please, don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. Right? Because I'm not going to get perfect. I'm not a perfect man, and there's not a perfect solution to this problem. But we're going to do our very, very best. So we'll have another conversation then, and if the feedback is kind of what I'm feeling right now and what I'm anticipating, then we'll put it on the ballot, and then it'll be up to y'all. Once it's on the ballot, I'm going to tell you, I feel like until the election, I'm going to feel like my job's done. Then it's going to be up to y'all to persuade each other to your way of thinking, because it doesn't matter what I think. I don't live here. I live in Cleveland. So I live in town. Yes, sir. Only the people who live in the district vote. I don't get to vote. I live in Cloud Falls. Okay? I don't get to vote.
So option 2 is a flat rate.
Flat rate per tax lot. $72. So for every tax lot you have, it's $6 a month. It's a lot cheaper. It's a lot cheaper. For y'all, the living is cheaper. Sorry, most of you. I ain't gonna be perfect. Yes. A different rate for improved lots and unimproved lots? I could look at that. I don't know what the difference. I'm gonna be honest with you. Of the nearly 16,000, so it's 15,912, I believe, tax lots. The percentage of improved lots is actually pretty small.
I know.
Which is why going off of assessed value. So you have a home here, right? Two homes. Yeah. Those improvements would be taxed fairly heavily if it was just based on value, because all of the money is going to come from the improved lots. Yeah. Let me ask you a question. So the question is, can there be two different rates? One for improved lots, one for unimproved lots. Quite frankly, I don't think that the needle's going to move very much because there's so few improved lots. But what's the right difference? Right? So let's say you have an improved lot. Now keep in mind, if we're saying improved lots are more and unimproved lots are less, the people who are living here are going to pay more, people who aren't are going to pay less. So keep that in mind. But what's the right delta? What's the right difference between those two? So if you think of something like that, let me know. Because I will put together 15 different options. And we can talk about the pros and cons of all of them. It doesn't matter to me. You guys get to decide in the end. So.
Well, it kind of looks like you backed into the $72 number from your top option one.
So what I did is I said, I need a little over $1 million.
I know.
Right? That's what I did. So I didn't do it off option one. I did it off of a dollar.
You're saying you came up with using your sergeants and the high rate of pay and all that. That's the number that you came up with.
Yes.
Then you use the tax
Yes.
$72.
Yes.
You're backing into that.
Yes.
So that's
Yeah.
not the same thing.
Okay, yeah, and I can do the same thing based on unimproved and improved. So if I say I'm going to add more or make it more to an improved lot, all I have to do is say how much more, and then I can tell you what that does for a reduction to all the others. So it's, I guess the question I would have for all of you is, do you think it should be the same, or what should that difference be? Should it be $100 for an improved lot and $68 for an unimproved lot? I think that's what you're going to see kind of those differences, quite honestly. So it's going to be a significant increase on the improved, and just because of the discrepancy between the number of each. But I'll put that together, and I can even use that $100 mark on an improved lot and tell you what that does to the unimproved to achieve the same goal. Yeah, I'm happy to do that. That's actually easy math. Yeah. Yes, sir.
We're talking about unimproved versus improved. What makes it improved? Is it only a house? Do farm buildings count? What?
Also a great question. So are we talking about a single family residence or a commercial building, or are we also talking barns and shops and those types of things? So I can do it all the ways, right? I can do it by residence, and I can do it by any improvement. So that's honestly, I'm going to be really, really transparent. All I do is type in and tell them to give me the numbers. So and somebody else has to go figure it all out. Because the only really nice thing about this job is I get to tell people what to do. So. The rest of it's not all that awesome. I already outlasted some. But any other questions? I hate doing this because it's always difficult. By a show of hands, I'm going to ask 3 questions. I'm going to ask, are you supportive of the concept? I'm going to ask 4 questions. Supportive of the concept, but it needs to be tweaked. I hate this thing. Actually, let's just do those. Okay? So by a show of hands, how many people in the room are supportive of the concept? No, this is just support. Flat support. Let's try it one more time. Flat support. Okay. Support, but it needs to be tweaked. You only get to vote once. So, yes to those. How many people say this is not for me? 3. Okay. Thank you. That's good feedback, right? It lets me know, am I on the right track? Are we doing well? Those types of things. There's a few people that need to be recognized. Number 1, all of you. You showed up last time, some of you showed up this time, to really say, hey, you work for me. Go get something done. Okay. The town council, quite frankly, folks, they've been phenomenal to work with. They have been great. You have some great leaders in the town of Bonanza, and you should be proud of the leadership that you've elected. So thank you all, and Mayor Tyrese is not here, thank her as well. And of course, all of the staff, you guys are amazing as well. And then of course, the tax assessor, the clerk, they're elected as well, our county council, all those folks. People put a lot of work into this, they really, really did, and they need to be recognized. So that was just one shot at that.
I got it from a friend who sent it to me, a little baby. Hadn't heard about any prior meeting, nothing. This is the first time I've heard about it.
We put it on our.
Lovely. We did put it on the Town of Bonanza's Facebook page, and we did hang some flyers around town, and then I did drive out to Dating Line on Friday and put it wherever I could find a place to hang the flyers. But it really is going to come down to word of mouth. And kudos for agreeing to record this segment as well. Thank you for coming out on a Tuesday afternoon. We appreciate you very much. But this will be posted up on the Commissioner's YouTube channel, and we'll share that as well on our Facebook page. And we're looking at starting an Instagram page. So we'll try to get it out, but the more you spread it, will help as well.
For some of us that don't, I could, no problem. If you have an idea, please let us know.
Good for you.
I know somebody that does, you could ask them more than
Yeah. So all of y'all just tell each other.
If there's other ways that you see fit, please tell us. And there's other ways that you would like to see it advertised or out, just let us know.
And we would be happy to do another one of these here as well. We're going other places, but we'd be happy to do another one.
Y'all want me to do another one of these? And you want to tell your friends and bring them, and we can do another one here? I have another question over here, but also a shout out to Freddie. He's our video on it for us. Thanks,
I
Freddie.
was just gonna say, where do you get your news from? How do you find things out? Obviously, I don't. Do we mail a flyer? Do we email it? You know, at Bonanza, email PDL to distribute information.
I would say I could put an announcement in the paper.
I'm sorry?
I can put an announcement in the
Yeah.
paper. Y'all are gonna get me in trouble. Okay. Any other questions, folks? Again, I want